Are you a leader navigating burnout, doubt, or growth? Welcome to the Ripple Effect Leadership Podcast, where intentional leadership creates lasting impact. Hi, I'm Jen Brown with my co-host Hugo Rodriguez, and we're diving into real leadership stories and practical insights to help you lead with clarity, courage, and connection. Because we believe great leadership creates positive ripples at work and in life. Hi, I'm Jen Brown, a certified life and leadership coach with Journey of Grace Coaching, and with over 20 years experience as a Foreign Service Officer with the Department of State, where I had the privilege of working with my dear friend and colleague, Hugo Rodriguez. Hugo, over to you.
Thank you, Jen. As Jen said, my name is Hugo Rodriguez. I am a 25-year veteran of the Department of State, also a leadership coach, and currently a professor of practice in leadership. Now, you may be wondering why two retired diplomats are talking about leadership. Diplomacy is really a people business. And Jen and I, both working together throughout our careers and separately in our different jobs, spend a lot of time learning how to motivate people, how to find purpose, how to persuade, and how to teach leadership to our young teams as they work their way up the career ladder. And so we thought we'd sit down and talk about some of the things that we learned in our leadership journey and share them with you, whether you are leading your own teams or whether you're the member of a team and working to help that team succeed. We thought this conversation would be useful for you. So, Jen, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, since we are in January, that period of New Year's resolutions, we're going to talk about planning out your year ahead. And that starts with reflecting. Because when we think about all the New Year's resolutions that we make on January 1, 2 weeks in, we have Quitter's Friday because those resolutions don't last. And yet, what we find is that when we're intentional on reflecting on the year before and then setting a plan for the year ahead, we do much better. In fact, Harvard Business Review has said that leaders who reflect daily actually improve their performance by about 23%. And so those reflections are not just nice to haves, they are bottom line changers. And one of my favorite ways to head into the new year is actually through a process that Mel Robbins started, and it is her annual audit. And what she does is she uses the best business practice of what are we stopping, starting, and continuing. And she really takes a look at the year before and notes like what was on the calendar, who did she spend time with. She really dives into that year before, that prior year, in order to inform how she wants to spend 2026, the year that we are in now. So with that, my question is, as we go through this, where are you on your GPS map for setting your year? Hugo, what are you looking at from last year?
I love that process of Mel's, because we tend to plow forward and think as little about the past as we can, but it is really important to look back on your year. So where am I? A lot of great things happened last year, but also I feel like if I'm honest with myself, some of the time I spent wasn't as productive as it might be. Right? And so recognizing as I look at my calendar, I could have sharpened my pencil in that area. And for this year, maybe I will spend kind of less time spinning my wheels, more time buckling down on certain things. So I love the exercise of it. I also love what you said about Quitter's Friday. It is a thing. And so, I always start my year with great intentions, but then a couple of weeks in, you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to make all this fit into my calendar. Yeah. And getting past that point is always important. So being thoughtful. And, Mel's framework is one great one. But what worked for you? What didn't work for you? What do you want to continue doing? And what new things do you want to try? I think that is part and parcel of being a good leader, is being reflective and thoughtful about, the year past and what do we want to do in the year to come.
I love that. And actually, that ties to one of the best practices that I love to do, which is my leadership vision statement. And so, yes, I retired from the State Department last year, and that was a life-changing event for me because I spent almost half my life with the State Department. And switching identities, if you will, meant that I needed to revisit my values and my leadership vision statement because we are all leaders leading from wherever we are, we influence. And as a leadership coach, I'm now working with leaders and teams to help them in their leadership journeys. And so I need my own leadership vision statement that aligns with my values and what that outcome is, that impact that I am looking to make. And so that is part of my reflection from last year is how did I do in all of that? How did I show up? I won't lie in my story, Hugo. I don't know about you, but as part of my transition, I found I'm like my own worst boss because I like started leaning into work, 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 which were some of the tendencies I had had prior from different bosses. And then the truth hit me like, ooh, this is me doing this. So what a great opportunity to reflect on how I was showing up.
Yeah, that's really true. So it is a good time right now to go back over your leadership vision statement. Also to go back over your core values. Are they still the things that matter to you? A
Yeah.
practice that I picked up kind of midway through last year was paying attention to the things that are on my daily calendar that give me energy and the things that suck energy, right? And if you are just sort of
Yeah.
thoughtful about kind of looking at your day through that lens, you will see that there are some things that you really get jazzed to do. And even if they're hard, they leave you feeling energized. And then there are other things may not even be that hard, right? But you really find yourself dragging to have to do them. And
Yeah.
recognizing those two energy flow directions can help you make some good decisions about the coming year. Now, you may not be able to not do those energy suck activities, but maybe there's somebody else in your orbit that gets energy from that kind of thing and that will take that off your plate. And maybe you can take something off their plate on one of the energy giving things. As an extrovert and a people person, I love the interaction with clients, with students,
Yeah.
with mentees, right? That gives me a lot of plus energy in the course of my day. The kind of daily accounting to keep up with the business expenses. Oh, that stuff is a drag. I don't get a lot of excitement out of it. My wife, on the other hand, she loves that carpentry work, right? And she will take that and do that if I will interact with the cable guy or whatever, right? So there are ways to kind of manage your calendar so that you prioritize or emphasize the things that you love doing and trade off some of the things that don't give you that energy is another way to go into the new year thinking about where do I want to spend my time and what
Yeah.
value do I want to add in the world.
The values and the strengths. What I'm hearing is, really leaning into where the strengths are. And I think I share in that. Like when we started this podcast, I knew it would be work and the energy that came that I knew would be there for us is this interaction about talking about a topic that we both love. And so really leaning into where am I filling that energy bucket, right? And that shows up for me in engaging with clients. There are trade offs and other aspects of running a company that are not necessarily my strong suits. And so when I think about how do I bucket those on a calendar so that I can be targeted and in the best mindset to lean into those tasks that are not energy filling for me.
That's
That's
a
where, yeah,
super good point. Like that's another way you can look at this exercise is give yourself a couple of energy pluses for every energy minus that you have to do so that
yeah,
your day isn't just a total energy sucking you into the day, crashing and burning, right? You can organize your schedule going forward so that you get enough of those high points in there that you don't mind the low energy drag ones as much. I think that's super smart way of balancing it. That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah. So we're talking about who we were last year and revisiting like what's important to us as we show up in 2026. I think one point that I sometimes have skipped over, and there's a distinction in what I'm going to say here. This point is really important. Who's in our inner circle? And I'm not talking about our teams. These are two different things. And so when I reflect on who's in my inner circle and do they challenge me in a way that represent diversity of opinion, that call me out when I'm not really doing that myself, right? They really are providing that feedback of what they're observing is being an energy filler where maybe it's not a strength of mine, maybe what I should be leaning into. And I think this point was really hammered home for me in this Global Leadership Summit in 2025 that I participated in. And I heard Pastor Gabe Salguero, who was just phenomenal. And he talked about the need for leaders to serve as bridge builders and going deeper and stronger than surface level checking boxes about who's around them and getting that diversity of opinion. And what he said is that sometimes our protesters are our biggest allies and catalysts for reimagining our work. And that really gave me pause to think, like, do I have people beyond cheerleaders around me in that inner circle? So I think I'm doing some work in this space for 2026. That's for sure. I think I need some more diversity of opinion, board of advisors, people with different expertise and experience who can challenge me there. Hugo, what's come up for you in your inner circle?
So another way to think about the inner circle is your kitchen cabinet, right?
Mm,
Your people that you trust in your circle who can reinforce the good things you're doing and make you aware of the bad things you're doing. And you have to have the trust to hear those things and know that they've got your best interests in mind. Scott Galloway says that you're the sum of your five closest friends. And that is a
mhm.
really powerful way of thinking about it as well. And I would say in the designing your life process, they talk about having, a group, a team around you of counselors that can kind of help you find your course and stick to your course, right? I
Yeah.
consider you, Jen, one of my members of my kitchen cabinet and somebody that I reach
Thank you.
out to bounce ideas off of. Throughout my leadership journey, I would find people that were at similar places in their leadership journey just to compare notes. Is this working? Hey, I tried this. I don't know, what do you think? Is there a better way to do it? And then finally, having a couple of more senior people and more junior people, right?
Beautiful.
The,
Yeah.
the junior people are my mentors because they're more in tune with what my teams are going through, right? I am Gen X for what it's worth. I'm not a huge believer in this generational thing, but there are some good things about it. There's some good ways
Hmm.
of thinking about it. But I'm very I'm early Gen X. And so my formative leaders in the early part of my career were definitely baby boomers with
Yeah.
their unique way of approaching work. I am less interested in the way baby boomers thought about things than I am in the way millennials think about things. Because as a leader, that's the group that I need to bring along with me. So
Hmm.
I need to understand what are the things that motivate them. Why do they come to work every day? What are they trying to accomplish? And in my effort to be emotionally intelligent about making this worthwhile for them, I need to have young mentors who are saying, "Oh, you know what? Me and my cohort, we don't care so much about that. What we care
Yeah.
about are these other things." That's
Yeah.
hugely important for me as a leader to understand. And so making sure that my kitchen cabinet has a nice balance of those who came before me and can help me not step in the potholes they stepped in, and
Right.
also folks who are younger than I am, earlier in their career journeys, who can help me understand what their cohort is experiencing and what their concerns, interests, dreams, and desires are, so that I can make sure that I understand and can incorporate that as we all move together as a team. So that's kind of how I look at my kitchen cabinet, my circle, and I'm very transparent about it. I will tell young folks, hey, I need a mentor. Would you be willing to, talk to me regularly and let me ask you questions? And I'm here to listen and learn from you. And usually I get the, surprised face like, wait a second, you're the one with all of these years of experience. And sometimes that's a hindrance, not a
Exactly.
help, right?
Oh, I love that you brought this up because when we think about, Gen Y, Gen Z, and all of this, I will say, even in my journey as I was transitioning into coaching full time, one of the best mentors I found, and I'm going to give her a shout out here, Emily Ledbetter. She really helped me in the podcasting space and in a way of talking about leadership in general, faith in leadership and really just in some ways I don't even know that she knows that she was holding me accountable, but really helping me think through who I am and showing up as a leader, as a coach, and being authentic in that. And so the importance of having that kitchen cabinet selectively, right? Like we can't have everybody in the kitchen cabinet or else it's kind of like my mom's cabinet drawers. You don't want to open them and everything might fall out. But sorry, mom. But it's true, right? We need to clean out the kitchen cabinets and we want a good mix of the tools available to us
Yeah.
through the people we have in that inner circle.
Since we're on this topic, can I just a word about mentors and coaches and cabinet members, right? I meet folks who are just starting their career journey. And unfortunately, I think we create this image that a mentor is there with you every step of the way, every day of the week for life. And then I know for me, when I started working, this was kind of the assumption. And it was disappointing that, I'd have a mentor for a little while and then they'd be off doing something else and
Yeah.
we'd lose that connection. And that I came to realize that I had the wrong concept for a mentor. And for me, you don't need the mentor every day. You need the mentor when you need the mentor. And so it's the same with my kid cabinet. I'm not talking to them every week, but I know when I hit a little
Right.
spot, something tells me I need feedback on this. Like I need insight. I need something. I do keep regular contact with them. Like I'm always keeping those lines of communication up because sometimes, especially with my young mentors, sometimes they want mentoring as well. And so I want to make sure that they know I'm still available. And so regularly, I'll reach out and just check in or maybe have a coffee. But it is much more situational than it is constant. And the other thing that I had to change my thinking around is like not everybody is a good mentor. Actually, not everybody's the right coach for you. And you have to kind of
That's right.
stop it a little bit to find that. But what I found is you're going to know the first time you meet somebody if they're the kind of person that is generous of heart and is willing to help you on your journey, even if it's just one time, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to get repeat sessions with a mentor to make it worthwhile. Sometimes just having coffee and learning from that person one time can be the difference between seeing the light and staying in the dark. And so what I have had to do over the course of my career is kind of break up the mental model I had of mentors into kind of situational and one time and just friendships. And then also knowing that when I find someone who has a spark in their eye that's like, when they talk to me, they're like, oh, I'm interested. And they show that interest, that's a
Yeah.
potential mentor.
Yeah.
And it's on me to then take the next step and say, could we get together? I'd really love to know more about what you do and how you got here and all of those things. So, I'm not asking for a long-term commitment, but a one-time thing, and we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll be, an ongoing conversation. But when I see a spark in someone that shows interest and curiosity about me, I take the next step and I see if I can deepen that relation a little bit and learn from that person. And that is kind of the
Yeah.
process. We always think we need to be assigned a mentor and there needs to be a matching process. Never works.
Yeah.
And what has worked for me is when I see somebody that shows that interest and then I start to build that relationship with them. That's where my best mentors have come from, both more advanced in their careers and earlier in their careers than I am.
I
How's
love that
your experience
intentionality.
been? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. It's definitely more of an organic in the mentoring space and being intentional with where I'm spending that time, making sure that it's a right fit. And I do want to differentiate when we talk about mentoring and coaching, because mentoring is more of that fluid conversation to be able to share experiences and say, what was your experience, and get that feedback from the mentor, right? And coaching is more of the coach walking alongside of someone and exploring where it is the person wants to go and helping through powerful questions for that person to glean those steps that they need to take and buy into. So there's a big difference in the two. And I think when I reflect on 2025, I've had a good mix of both, and finding that right fit of a mentor through my own business transition and various mentors as part of my inner circle. And Hugo, I also count you as one, and I've been very lucky for many years to say that, as well as with coaching. And so coaching from 2025, being able to challenge me as part of an inner circle and help me to determine where I'm going next. So I think it is really important as part of that inner circle to be selective, because really you can't have everybody in the kitchen cabinet. So who are you investing the time in? Are they the right fit? And by the right fit, I don't mean my inner circle, again, being my cheerleaders. I mean, supporting me, encouraging me, calling out strengths, and challenging me. Because sometimes I can be so ingrained in what I think I'm supposed to do that I miss that bigger mark of where I should be going.
It's a
So,
related thing that I want to raise up. And since you mentioned coaching, another way I think of coaches is they hold up a mirror, right? A mentor
yeah,
says, here are the things that I did. Maybe you can learn from my experience. A coach says, let's talk about the things you did so that you can learn from your own experience, right? And they're holding up a mirror
right.
to that. In the same way, it is important to be asking your team,
Yes.
right? And here, beginning of the year is a great time to sort of say, hey, you know what, guys, we're facing 2026 together. Let's take a look back at 2025, and I would love your feedback. What went well? What didn't go well? And the emphasis is
Yeah.
on what did I do well? I don't want to say it that way. Um, what? How was I helpful? Was I able to be helpful in what ways? And are there things I did that were unhelpful? Now, I'm going to go back to Mel Robbins and her, do more of, do less of, and continue doing. That's an
Yeah.
awesome framework and an awesome framing for having this conversation with your team. Because you can say, look,
Yeah.
as we face the new challenges of the year, I want to make sure that I am giving you what you need. So as you reflect on 2025, what should I do more of and what should I do less of?
Yeah.
Right? And get
Yeah.
that feedback from them because they're going to hold up a mirror for you about what worked and what didn't work. And you need that just the same way you need feedback from your kitchen cabinet and your circle. You need feedback from your team because at the end of the day, the way you show up for them day in and day out has a huge impact on their ability to be effective, to grow their skills, to deliver results for the organization, right? So as important as my kitchen cabinet is to me, I really, really want to know how I am showing up for my team and how I can do that
Yeah.
better in the new year.
I love that. And I think this goes beyond a 360. I think that this can be for our leaders and business owners and anyone listening. I would challenge you, how can you sit down with your team and have that reflection conversation? It does not need to be a formal 360 process. In fact, especially in January, this is a great time to have that team building conversation and ask them, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? What would you start? Get their feedback. And this really gets to your team ROI. How is your leadership adding a return on investment to your team and their own growth?
Would you ask that question? Like, if you're interested in getting the ROI,
Yeah,
the return on investment, we should say, speak that out, right? You want to have an understanding of how your efforts are helping your team succeed. Another way of saying that.
that's right.
Tell me how you would go about creating the space and asking the question so that your team can give you that information, that feedback.
I think one of the first questions I would ask is, where are you now compared to a year ago? And where do you want to go? Where do you see the opportunity, both in terms of morale and performance? And as a leader, right, that can boil down to what's worked. I think we have to create the stage, though, for the team to really feel that openness and that trust and sharing. And so I really do like that question of, you're in charge. What do you do? What do you want?
So let's say you get the team on an offsite beginning of the year, it's a fresh page on the calendar, asking them, what are our opportunities in the new
Yes.
year?
Yeah.
And what do we want to leave behind in the old year that really took a lot of energy but didn't generate a lot of results?
Percent, right? I mean, that's the boiling down of, what would you get rid of? What really didn't work for us? Getting that true feedback. I really would put it in a couple of buckets, though, of morale and performance, because I think we and when I say morale, I'm not just saying the nice to have feel good stuff. I'm talking about real team growth, real team investment. Are we connected as a team? Are we communicating as a team?
Can you hear your team answering that question though? My challenge here is that if I say to my team, like, how do we how can we improve morale? Yeah, maybe some of them are going to answer that, but in a group, a lot of times, the answer might be, boss, you're not giving us enough autonomy, or, Joe over in the corner is a drag on productivity and morale. And, well, what would be really helpful if he showed up for work on time once in a while, right? Like, they might be thinking
Yeah,
these things, but they're not
yeah,
going to say it in a group. So, like, I want to create an environment where I can leverage the trust I've built, give them questions that start to give me a little bit of a read. Hopefully, I've been having conversations throughout the year, and I know Joe's struggling,
right,
right? I know the team
right.
is struggling with Joe. So maybe this isn't the environment to flesh that out. I might need to be doing that in one-on-one conversations, and particularly with Joe.
Right.
But that's why I like the question of, what are our opportunities, and what did we do in the old year that sucked more energy than it gave us in terms of returns, right? Just keeping it general like that might give people the chance to give us a little bit more insight.
I definitely agree with you. I also think, though, there is a space to ask that more targeted of, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Because I think sometimes, and it may sting a little bit when we get that feedback, but sometimes in that group space, there may be some opportunity to say, the way that you handle, or the way that we have handled our task distribution isn't the most productive. right? Or we don't have the resources, or we could be growing in this area. And so I think it gets to what you're saying in terms of where are the opportunities. I also, I just think that it also sets the stage of saying, hey, I'm looking to grow too. And as the leader, when I can hear what your pain points are, then we can try to set some goals together. And I'm saying goals, not New Year's resolutions here, but some real goals so that I'm taking your feedback and I'm taking on what my part is, and we as a team then can set some strategic targets for opportunities in the year ahead.
I certainly love it. I think being as direct as you can be is helpful. I fear, and in my experience, has been that even when I build like deep trust, people are reluctant to um, criticize. It's just human nature. And so finding ways, as a leader, finding ways to ask that question where you are not setting it up for people to have to tell you that you've messed up, right? I don't
Fair.
mind getting hard feedback. I love to hear where I've messed up because the clearer they can make it, the easier it is for me to fix it. And it isn't really about the hardness for me. I think it's the hardness for them. I think they have a difficulty, sharing where I've fallen down. Maybe they're embarrassed for me, or maybe they're afraid I'll hold it against them down the road. Hopefully not. Hopefully, they trust me enough to share that kind of stuff. So that's why I go with a little bit more oblique language. Like, what should I do more of, and what should I do less of? Right? Allows them to say maybe less of
Yeah.
those types of directed whatever, and maybe more of the whatever it is, but trying to make it a safe space for them to tell me what is helping them and what's getting in their way is, I think, where I want to go with it. I will also say,
I
if they
definitely,
give you that feedback, by golly, you gotta act on it. Don't ask for it unless you are ready and willing to
you
make those
do.
changes in your life, and show them that you
Yes.
value that feedback and that gift, and that you're going to put it to action. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, no, I totally agree. You have to be willing to act on it. And, I do want to just be clear. I'm not saying set the stage in a way where this becomes a critical conversation. I think there's a way to really set the tone to have an open conversation, though. And even if that feedback doesn't come in that meeting, there's a strong likelihood that somebody will stop by your office or give you a call and say, hey, I was thinking about this, and
Ooh,
then
yes,
still offer some feedback there. So
that is
I would propose,
absolutely true. Good, good. That's a really good point. You are making yourself vulnerable, and they might not take you up on it in the moment, but they recognize you're open for
yeah.
it, and they will take you up on it, maybe in a place and time that is better suited for that. I think that's great.
Yeah. And I think, the other point really is when you take this feedback, right? And as a team, you're soliciting it in whatever form, then it is the what you do with it. And reflecting is really that first step. How does that feedback align or not with your own reflection of your leadership? And are you in tune with that team's feedback? Did you already expect that they would say something, or did something catch you off guard? Because there's an opportunity in your own self awareness to bridge that gap.
Tell me more. That's interesting.
So I would say, for example, when I have received feedback, in a lot of cases, not all, I was expecting some of that feedback of, more one-on-ones. Earlier in my leadership journey, I was not as consistent in the one-on-ones in a set pattern, I should say. And when I got the feedback that my team wanted more direct interactions, I knew that was coming. I had a sense that was coming, I should say. So it was not really a surprise. In some cases, I remember a couple times I received feedback on how I gave feedback. And again, I'll go back to earlier in my career. I started with that sandwich model, right? Of like positive opportunity, ending on a positive. And then I got some feedback that that was not how some of my team wanted to receive feedback. And honestly, I hadn't reflected on that. So it caught me off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was an opportunity for me to learn different feedback styles and be more
Awesome.
mindful of adaptive leadership, right? And knowing how different people may want to receive feedback because it's not a one set model. One size does not fit all.
What's your advice for leaders who, when they get the feedback, aren't surprised by it? In other words, they knew they were they they were not aligned. Their leadership style was not aligned with what their team needed, but they hadn't
Yeah.
taken the action yet to align it. In the example you gave, let's say that you knew that they wanted more direct one-on-one with you and you were not delivering it. So when they gave you the feedback, you weren't surprised. In that situation, what's your advice to young leaders who maybe recognize maybe they're not living up to what the kind of leadership they want to deliver?
Right. Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, it starts with, and this is part of the year reflection, right? What does your calendar say about you? And what I found is I was in misalignment with what was on my calendar and where my values were. And so step back and look at where are you prioritizing your values and how do they show up on your calendar? We often say that what's measured gets done, what's on our calendar reflects our priorities. All of that's great. But if we're not really intentionally looking at what we're putting on that calendar, then it's easy to just go with what we think is the most urgent and move instead of being intentional with our values.
So let's
So
say
take
this.
that time, do the assessment.
We are starting a new year, and maybe some of our listeners have listened to other podcasts that we put out in 2025, and they know there are things they should be doing, or they know that there are leadership behaviors, leadership habits that they want to adopt that they haven't quite adopted yet. So here's a challenge
Yeah,
to you all out there. Don't wait for your team to tell you. If you are feeling it
right.
today, right? If you feel like you're not living up to your leadership value statement, right? Let's make 2026
Yeah,
the inflection point to try those things, to try to make those a habit so that when your team does give you feedback, what they say is, we see you trying, right? And then you can say, thank you, I am trying.
that's right.
And you guys hold me accountable. Like when I do it, tell me, attaboy. When I don't do it, say, hey, I
Yeah,
really like this. Can we get back to doing this? And let's not wait till the end of your assessment. Let's do it
yeah,
now because this is the leader I want to be. My ideal would be that every time your team gives you feedback, it is a surprise to you because you are trying to do all the right things. We're never going to hit the mark entirely. Right? I'm going to let you know right now as a leader,
right.
you can have all of both the best actions and the best execution, and your team is still going to want more and different from you because that's the nature of the beast. But that means you get a chance to continue to sharpen your pencil. And so I would love it so that every time I got feedback from my team, none of it was like, yeah, I was expecting to get hit with that one. And I want to
Right.
always be getting new and more challenging requests from them to keep me climbing that mountain. Like you never want to say, yeah, I knew I should have done that, but I just couldn't find the time. Right? I'm going to find the time. I'm going to be the leader I want to be and let them continually challenge me to be even better than I am and surprise me with their new requests. That's what I want to hear in my sessions with my team, my feedback session.
And I love that. I think sometimes we enter into leadership roles and we don't really know the expectations. We may have a gut feeling of something that we should be doing or, what the team may want from us. But if we don't stop and really listen to that and check in, then we're missing an opportunity. So agree. right? Like take that time and don't wait for the January goal setting as a
Yeah,
way to really set your leadership statement, your vision. It should be an ongoing process to build that partnership with your team.
yeah, yeah. I can actually think back right now on feedback that I got where I guess I was surprised, but then when they told me that, I was like, oof, yes, I did that. And that contradicts something that I really want to be as a leader. Thank you for pointing it out. I wasn't
Hmm.
maybe expecting it, but it was a blind spot. And
Yeah.
then, you want to have your actions follow your words, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes as leaders, we may not realize when our actions don't all the way close that loop. And so that is a good spot that goes back to the point you were making where, yeah, I knew. Like, I didn't realize in the moment I wasn't living up to it, but yes, that is my commitment and I want to do better. So thank you for the feedback and help me get there.
Yeah. And I think, right, it's that when your inner circle and your teams feel that trust of being able to share and point those things out to you, that says a lot about the culture that you've created and your authenticity of leading into that feedback. So this then gets to the next step of operations, right? So when we invest in ourselves, that inner circle, and our teams, how are we stepping back to really look at the bottom line of the output, the outcomes that we are generating? And I think in this case, what is also really helpful as part of this year in review, if you will, is really diagnose how your office, how your company is running. Map out your processes. What does it look like when a client reaches out to you to the end product that's delivered, the end service that's delivered? And early on as a leader, I loved that we had a real process map with post-it notes up on the wall that we could really diagnose all these steps that a client might need to take to get the service they had paid for and to see our operations in action. How many people had to touch that request? What was the timeline in that request? There are lots of different ways that businesses and companies entities can do their review. But as part of that reflecting on the year ahead or the year ahead and the year behind, how can you trim that process in the year ahead? Where can you make it more lean, more efficient? And I think January is just such a beautiful time to really be intentional once we're getting that leadership feedback to then see how we put it into action, into that bottom line and the tactical use. So, Hugo, I'm curious, you've had a lot of experience in the operation side. How have you led operational reviews?
Wow, you raise up a lot of interesting thoughts there. So a couple of things I've learned that might be counterintuitive. The first one is obviously that you can't really talk to your team about either strategic goals for the new year or performance in the old year without getting that kind of feedback from your boss. And so all of this starts with talking to
Mm,
your supervisor, your leadership. How did we do? What did we do well? Are the new goals for the new year? Where would you like to see us filling gaps that we're not currently filling? That is a huge piece of understanding what your opportunities are in the new year. The other thing that I have found really works great is delegating this to my team.
mm,
Delegating this activity, right? Let's say we're getting together in January for an offsite. We're going to talk about the year that's gone by and the opportunities for the year to come. And what did we do that we could do better or do more efficiently or more effectively? I might
yeah.
create like 2 or 3 groups within my team to tackle those finite questions and give them the responsibility for thinking deeply about it and then for creating the conversation with the whole team around it, right? We've talked occasionally about like, I really try not to be the good idea fairy in my office. like always adding new things for us to do.
Right.
My teams, they're closer to the work and they're the ones who are going to, I can see results, but I might not have the same appreciation for process that they have. So as kind of an operations guy, I want to get them not just involved in the conversation, I want them to drive the conversation. It serves me to both see what they see from their level. It also serves to get them started in their preparation for moving up the ladder. And we've talked about
Yeah.
part of my job is to get my team ready to take my job, take my seat. And
Right.
if I'm the one kind of dictating, here's the process map and here's the this and here's the that, they're never going to build those skills. And I want them building them now. And I think there's just a lot of value. So I might invite kind of my two top folks to come with me and sit with my boss and we talk about the year past and the opportunities for the year. They then take that
Yeah.
information from there, and one might be focused on how do we look at the year past and make some improvements. The other might be focused on how do we tackle the challenges to come? What are
Hmm.
opportunities and how might we go about that? I let them build a little small group around them to tackle this thing. It's important to make
Yeah.
sure you're giving them the time to think deeply about this. Like if you're going to commit to this effort to make it worthwhile, don't ask them to do their day job in addition to doing this. Break them out ample time so that they can prepare. And then we bring the whole group together and we let each of them do their thing. And
Yeah.
I'm not there to critique it. I am a participant. I might contribute some ideas. I might ask them to flesh more ideas out. I like the coaching style of leadership where you're curious and you
Yeah.
help elicit those thoughts. But when you laid out the principle of sort of sitting down in a beginning of year offsite, the first thing that comes up to me is, boy, what a great opportunity to let my team dance with those concepts, make their preparation, and then teach the rest of us. It's a great learning
Yeah.
opportunity, and I think you get better results.
I love that. And I want to throw something out there because I've personally had this experience with a wonderful boss. And then this point was reinforced at a summit that I was at where Juliet Fung, who is this advisor to Fortune 500 companies and the military, she really looks at strategic operations. And here's the concept. This could be a year of no new strategic initiatives. We are going to refine and really streamline what we already have in the pipeline. We don't always have that in our control, but sometimes when your team has been in a place of constant go, 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 lot of change and new things, maybe it's time as the leader to make the call. We're not trying anything new. Let's focus on what we already have and let's make that the best it can be.
Yep.
How can we be more efficient in that?
Yep, that
And
that
so I
resonates
think
with
there's
me.
space in having the team. Yeah. I think there's space in having the team really look at operations from that vantage point too, if you have that sort of autonomy to the best of your ability to say no new strategic initiatives and let's really hone in on where we are.
Especially in
So,
periods
so
of
how do we
uncertainty,
bring this
I
up?
think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think even beyond periods of uncertainty, if we've been in a place of growth and maybe we're feeling that we're on the right track, right? But we've been running really ragged and nonstop. Maybe we're at a period of how do we make this process sustainable? How do we make it efficient and sustainable? And so it maybe, that's not the whole year, but at least for a period of that, where as a leader setting that tone for how do we really reflect and improve
Yeah,
as part
yeah,
of the
I
year
like
ahead.
that. I like that, and that's something that you can really learn from your team, right? They can tell you when they're ragged. And please,
Yeah,
boss, nothing new. Like we need to consolidate what we've already done. We need to make what we're doing currently better. Let's not add something to that mix. And it's
right.
important as a boss to keep your ears open for that kind of sentiment. So
Yeah, especially as you're planning out that calendar for the year ahead. Where's that appropriate time? That's a question I'd ask. So this is great. We have lots of tools and things to reflect on and get feedback on. But how do we put this into action? Like, how do we hold ourselves accountable for this for the year ahead? Or is this just another good offsite experience where we take it back and then don't do anything with it?
Don't do that.
Right?
Once you have built the trust and you convince people to show you the ways that you can grow and the things that the team can do to tackle the year to come, right? It's time to make a plan and start to build those habits and start to put those things to action. It is the whole purpose of building trust on the team is so that they can be helping you course correct and learn and grow. And if you don't close that trust loop by acting on that advice and insight,
Yeah.
the trust will disappear. So, yeah, it is important that once you have that conversation with your team, with your kitchen cabinet, with your boss about the year to come, now you have to sort of consolidate all the information you've got and put it into action. Have a bias towards action.
Yeah.
If it is about how you need to grow, then put the post-it notes on your bathroom mirror in the morning that says, today I'm going to ask more questions and tell people less, right? Tell people like ask more, tell less. Or today I
Right.
am,
Right.
gonna whatever it is, and start to make that a habit. If it is, ways that your boss sees your team grow, okay, we are going to start working on those things, and I'm going to put that into a feedback loop with my boss so he actually sees the effort and the progress we're making. If it's stuff that your team wants to do,
Yeah.
get it on the calendar, right? Put together a small working group. We're going to start knocking out these things. And this is the most important thing that I see. It's frustrating to me because especially today, where meetings seem to be a substitute for actual progress, right?
Right.
You have to set markers, right? Not just we're going to do this, but we're going to have these results in this time frame. It can slide,
Yeah.
that's fine, but your team needs to know, what am I being graded on? And when do I
Mm-hmm.
have to show those results? Having
Yeah.
another meeting is not the same as results. And
No.
so, be alert to what is your team struggling with? Why aren't we making progress? Are you short on resources? Do you have too much on your plate? Here's my expectation that you will have X and Y done on
Yep.
this date. And if you don't make it, let's have a conversation about why, right? Not just, okay, when do you think you'll have it done? But say, well, okay, what happened? And let me understand where my expectation was off. What else do you need? Right? So you need to make it clear what your expectations are, because that's what they will use to hold themselves accountable.
Absolutely. And so really to bring this all back, right? This is your own leadership reflection on the year ahead as part of your goal setting for who you want to be as a leader in the year ahead. And it's also your team reflection, your team strategic setting for the year ahead with those clear milestones of expectations and team buy-in. So how you are functioning as a team. And I think the question really is, when you reflect on 2025, what worked? What didn't? What do you want to let go of? What do you want to start? What do you want to continue out of this? And how then are you putting that plan into action in a transparent way in 2026 with accountability? Otherwise, it's one more meeting, one more thing on the to-do list without the impact that it can really have.
Your role as a leader is to create the conditions for excellence, right? So everything we're talking about today is reflecting on the past year, do more of this, do less of this, continue doing these things. But then as you start to project into the future, what does the team need? What do they need from you? What do they need from the organization?
Yeah.
And then be as specific, make yourself accountable, help to make them accountable, build the framework for success, get that communication loop going so that, okay, we've talked about this on January 15th. When are we going to talk about it again? And by that time, what are we going to expect to have done? And if we don't have it done, how are we going to shift course, change what we need? And so I always come back to trust, empathy, emotional intelligence, and communication. This is the year to kind of redouble your efforts in all of those areas.
I love that. Absolutely. Well, Hugo, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation as we kick off 2026. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope that this is helpful as you set your year ahead.
Have a great year, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Ripple Effect Leadership Podcast. If this episode sparked an insight or reminded you of someone, please share it and help forward the ripple. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review so more leaders can find their way here. You can find us on LinkedIn at Jen Brown-Coach and at HF Rodriguez Jr. and more leadership content and coaching tools at journeyofgracecoaching.com. A quick heads up before you go. This podcast and all content shared by Ripple Effect Leadership is for informational and educational purposes only. The opinions and characterizations in this podcast are our own and do not necessarily represent the U.S. government. This podcast is not a substitute for mental health treatment or professional medical advice. If you are struggling, we encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health provider or call the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You don't have to do this alone.